You have probably heard of animals being divided into vertebrates and invertebrates based on the absence of a backbone. While vertebrates are a true monophyletic grouping, they only make up 5% of the animal kingdom. The other 95% are an informal grouping found in over 32 phyla. The simplest animals are the sponges and jellyfish. Sponges have multicellularity with cells that specialize to do specific tasks, but they lack true multicellularity because the tissues do not derive from embryonic germ layers. They likely evolved from choanoflagellate protists, which also formed colonies. Cnidarians represent the jellyfish, corals, and sea anemones, and are the first animal group to introduce true tissues. They also, as embryos, develop these tissues from both ectoderm and endoderm germ layers, making them diploblastic. The most ancestral of all animals belong to phylum Porifera, or the sponges, with 5,000 species known to date. Phylum Porifera is considered the most ancestral of animals because they lack true tissues. Sponges lack true tissues because true tissues derive from embryological tissue layers. However, they have functional tissues, meaning that the cells act tissue-like by working together. Like all animals, they are multicellular with internal digestion, and they move at some point in their lifetime. The only time most sponges move is during their larval stage, where they swim and plant themselves to the substrate. Sponges are essentially water filtration systems, drawing in water for feeding and gas exchange and excreting water with waste and carbon dioxide. The various canals and chambers help to distribute this water to all parts of the sponge's body. Sponges vary in morphology, but the simplest body plan is a large, irregular cylinder with a large central cavity called the spongiocele. Water enters through the various pores, or ostia, and are expelled at a large opening called the osculum. Now please note that some sponges have elaborate labyrinths of chambers and canals that may not be represented by this model, but the path of water is still the same. The spongy feel is the result of structural cells that make up the mesohyl, which contains collagen fibers for pliability. Within mesohyl tissue lies amoebocytes, named due to their amoeba-like appearance. They help build the mesohyl and skeletal tissue called spicules. They also help in delivering nutrients to choanocytes, or feeding cells, which resemble choanoflagellate protists. The feeding chamber makes up the internal lining of the spongiocele and are made of choanocytes, which bring in microscopic food particles. The flagellum of each choanocyte functions in drawing water in with food particles. These particles then fuse across the cell and into the mesohyl of the sponge. Sponges reproduce sexually and asexually. Asexual reproduction methods include fragmentation, where a piece of the sponge breaks off and settles on a new substrate, and a new sponge grows from this. Budding happens, where a genetically identical outgrowth from the parent is formed and detaches to form a new sponge. Sponges are monoecious, meaning that both gametes are made from the same individual. Although to reduce self-fertilization, some sponges will switch from egg to sperm production at different times. Sponge larvae develop early in the parent sponge and then are released via the osculum, where they swim to an appropriate location and plant themselves into the substrate. For the most part, sponges are sessile, but sponge cells can creep together along a substrate. Now that we're finished with sponges, we have now finally reached the animals with true tissues, first one being phylum Cnidaria. All members of this phylum have radial symmetry and diploblastic embryonic arrangement. Also, all cnidarians have a cnidocyte, or stinging cell, around the mouth and tentacles. The purpose of these cells is to capture prey or defend themselves from predators. The organelle responsible for stinging is the nematocyst, which has barbs and long coiled threads. Cnidarians have two distinct body plans, a polyp, or a flower-like stalk, and a medusa, or some kind of bell form. Some groups have both body plans, termed dimorphic, and others only have one type. Regardless, the polyp is sessile as adults, and the medusa is motile. If dimorphic, the polyp acts as the asexual phase, and the medusa acts as the sexual stage, producing gametes. Regardless, like all animals, the bodies are made with diploid cells, except the gametes. Cnidarians are diploblastic, having two layers of embryonic tissues, endoderm, which gives rise to the gastrodermis that lines the digestive cavity, and the ectoderm, which gives rise to the outer layer called the epidermis. For the most part, there are no organs or organ systems in this group. Nervous tissue is organized as a nerve net throughout the body rather than condensed into a head-like region in most animals. There is some condension of nerves around the base of the bell in Medusa cnidarians to help move the tentacles. The nervous tissue arrangement is important for sessile and slow-moving animals so that they can detect changes at any direction and respond accordingly. The gastrovascular cavity, which is a digestive cavity of cnidarians, acts as both the mouth and the anus. As food is brought in by the tentacles into the cavity, the gastrodermis secretes digestive enzymes to break down food, and it gets absorbed through the tissue, and non-living mesoglia layer to the epidermis. In essence, the gastrovascular cavity acts as both the digestive and circulatory system of cnidarians. Because of the thickness of jellyfish and the lack of true circulation, gas exchange and waste expulsion must take place by diffusion within the epidermis or gastrodermal tissue. The non-living mesoglia exists to separate the two tissues, and since it's not alive, it doesn't need to do these functions. There are around 10,000 species in phylum Cnidaria split into 4 classes. The first class is class Anthozoa, which include the sea anemones and corals, who have a permanent polyp form, with around 6,100 species. These cylindrical animals bring food into the mouth after capturing them in the tentacles. Class Scyphozoa include the marine jellyfish with around 200 species. These are Medusa dominant with a small polyp stage. They range from 2 centimeters to 2 meters across, as the bell of this lion's mane jellyfish would show. Marine jellyfish are often used in public aquariums for their beautiful swimming motions. Class Cubozoa include the box jellyfish, which, as the name suggests, the medusa form a cube-like shape. The main difference between this group and the marine jellyfish has to do with how the tentacles are arranged. Marine jellies have tentacles around the rim of the bell base, while box jellyfish have muscular pads called pedalia at the corners, which is where the tentacles attach. The last class of phylum Cnidaria is class Hydrozoa, with nearly 3,500 species. This group has both polyp and medusa forms in their life cycle and can form polyp colonies. Obelia form polyp colonies, while the Portuguese man-of-war form floating medusa colonies. Siphonophores are a group of hydrozoans that can form hundreds of individuals, making colonies longer than blue whales. The main difference between hydrozoans and other cnidarian groups is how the gametes are formed. In the other groups, these are formed in the gastrodermis, while hydrozoans form gametes in the epidermis. Cnidarians are radially symmetrical and diploblastic animals. However, the vast majority of animal kingdom is bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic. In our next video, we will review 3 such phyla: flatworms, nematodes, and arthropods.